Alright guys, so this is my 2001 Subaru Forester S that I bought back in like 2016 for $2,500. And then in 2017 I got a wild hair to try to race this in Class 7, mainly for the Mexican 1000. I don't think that's ever going to happen, so now we just have this Prerunner Subaru thing. But it's a good example of what you can do just from researching on forums and watching YouTube videos. Because there's really nothing you can't do without enough research and time and money. So I guess we'll start, I don't really know where to start. But from the outside we've got 33 by 12.5. R15s on these RRW, what are these, RR5Vs? So a huge shout out to RRW, they really hooked me up there with a matching set for my Lexus. And so the whole drivetrain is Subaru. The engine is an EG33 out of an SVX. That's the weird spaceship looking Subaru. So I rebuilt it poorly by myself way back. When I was like 20. And so right now it's rocking some JE Pistons to give it 11-to-1 compression and king bearings, but the crank bearings they're a little wide. So it's running 20W50 oil right now just to keep the oil pressure up once it's warm. Makes it not want to start when it's cold at all. But hey, that's okay. So we've got some high performance vice grips right here on the high idle line. Really dirty K&N filter. For the SVX nerds, this does have the, what are they? The Z32 MAF. And 370cc injectors with the little ECU tune chip. And front suspension wise, we've got the Fox 2.5 internal bypass coilovers. These are 14-inch and the rears are 16. And the suspension itself is dual A-arms that I made. A lot of people ask if they're from a certain vehicle, but they're not. It's all just custom. Originally, it was all tube that I just made willy-nilly, like the trailing arms, which is part of the reason why the camber is so different in the rear. It's because I just built those on a garage floor. But anyway, so it cycles 17 inches in front, which is 13.5 at the shock, and then the rear is, I think, running about 18 to 19 inches of travel. But I can pull a lot more out. I just kind of did a poor job on the upper shock mounts. So the shocks are mounted a little too low. As for axles, that's another huge question I always get. The rears are a Subaru front outer joint and a stock rear inner joint, and then the two shafts are welded together. They're butt welded and then sleeved with that piece of DOM, and then lap welded on both sides. So I've never broken any welds or a shaft, but the inner joints blow apart all the time. And then the diff is just a stock R160 with 444 gears, and the transmission is just a WRX 5-speed with 444 gears, and so that's as low as you can get for a Subaru 5-speed, and it's definitely not low enough for 33-inch tires for sure. In the back we have a gigantic hole for spare tires for the whole Baja effect and to get some weight in the rear to kind of balance it out, because Subarus are so nose heavy. I have finally mounted my battery in a thing that holds it down so it won't kill me. I've got a super cheap Amazon fuel cell 20 gallon that I've modded to take the stock fuel pump, and it even has the little float in it so I can have a fuel gauge, but for some reason it doesn't work anyway. It used to. You can kind of see the little hoops for the rear shocks, my filler neck. In order to open the hatch, I just cut a zip tie. You can see my fancy latch over there. Cut a zip tie, open the door, put a zip tie back on to close it. Now inside, it's pretty clean actually. I don't know if people really expect that. I've got my old school NOS floor mats. That was from my very first Subaru. So super stupid and nostalgic like that. Corbeau just hooked me up with some very awesome Baja XP seats. So these are a suspension seat, and they're mounted using all of their hardware. It was just completely bolt-in, which is pretty awesome. And then I've got a little Amazon Hydro in here, and just a Go Get a Grip shifter. It's a pretty sweet setup. I have a lot of fun with that. And then aside from that, everything else in the interior is stock. Just stock gauges, 204,000 miles on it. Still got the windshield that got destroyed by the Dalton Highway. And then back here, there's just nothing. This used to be my storage unit. There was always like 40 pounds of just random steel and some skateboards, who knows what. There's always something. So I finally got that cleaned out. That was kind of a big deal. And then as for things, let's see, over here. Oh, got some ear protection because Lord have mercy, this thing's loud. In the glove box, look at all this. We got a ratchet with a socket. This one's 1.125" for putting on the tow bar. That's what these bolts are for. But then I always got to keep the 32 mil because when I break a rear axle, I can just unbolt it and put a stub in the hub. Then I've got my fuel door that just needs to be welded on. And of course, can't ever leave without zip ties. Other big things I get asked a lot is what axles are in the front. I guess I didn't touch on that one. And so I hit up a company called CVO in Ocala, Florida, and they made some axles with an NTN outer joint that is for a Ford F-250 with a Subaru stub welded on, and then the inner joint is a 930 CV bolted to a SubaruGears flange that they make for the Subaru transmissions. So really expensive front axles, but they've been bulletproof. The only thing that I've had issues with is the boots, but that's not their fault. And then I should give a huge shout out to Anderson Design and Fabrication because they did all of the cut sheet metal parts. So all this 11 gauge flat stuff, which is kind of hard to see. It's all kind of buried in there. But they got all that cut out for me. They also cut out all the pieces for the lower control arms. So if you have a Subaru and you just want it lifted, definitely hit them up. They make great lift kits, and they're a great bunch of dudes out in Oregon. And then lastly, to keep the EG cool, and anyone who knows these engines knows that they don't like to stay cool, I've just got the Mishimoto Radiator that they make for GC Imprezas. And so it just bolts right in to normal cars, not this one. And then I'm just running their fan shroud, and I've got it wired up exactly how the stock fans would be, and I have had zero issues. It's never overheated. That's pretty much all you can say for radiator. Doesn't leak, keeps the engine cold. It's perfect. So that's pretty much it for the old Sub.